Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th, and CMU Public Broadcasting again brings you Meet the Candidates, the election year series that gives you the chance to meet those seeking state and national office.
Support of WCMU is provided by Flint Institute of Arts, presenting Drawing Together International Cartoons. The exhibition features 300 cartoons from the Iden-Doan Foundation International Competition and runs through December 30th. FlintArts.org.
Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas. We are joined this time by Joan Brausch. She is the Democratic candidate in the race for Michigan's 98th House District. Thanks so much for being with us and welcome to our program.
My pleasure.
We spend our first few moments doing as our program title says, in meeting the candidates, a chance for you to introduce yourself to the voters in this race and give them a little bit of an idea about you, your background and experience you bring to the campaign.
Well, I'm married. I have a wonderful husband named Dave. We have 2 grown children, and I have 3 wonderful grandchildren. And I worked in a church in Midland for over 20 years. I have a master's degree in theological studies. And while I worked there, I preached, I taught people about their faith, organized all kinds of events, and retired from that position 4 years ago. I've been involved in the Midland Democratic Party for over 30 years. And while I've been involved in the party, I've been involved in various campaigns as a volunteer. I coordinated a gubernatorial campaign at the county level, which was great fun. And I've been a member of the executive committee of the Democratic Party at the county level and also been an officer. I've served the community of Midland as a member of the local officers compensation board for the city. And I also was able to be with my husband, a Girl Scout leader for our daughter's troop for about 8 years. And I've been involved in all kinds of volunteer activities over the years in the city of Midland. So I bring all of that as my experience, to my candidacy.
To the district itself, we get to the point where we look at the map,
yes.
Noting that those do change every 10 years, and the changes aren't as much as important as just each time we sit down for these to get an idea of what counties, what townships, and in this case then what makes up District 98.
District 98's changed quite a bit from where it was 10 years ago. So it is now made up of 6 townships in Midland County, and those townships are Midland Township, Larkin Township, Homer Township, Lee Township, Lincoln Township, and Jerome Township, which includes the city of Midland and the village of Sanford. And then now 7 townships in Bay County, so it runs up the western edge of Bay County, from Williams Township up to Gibson Township, and includes Pinconning and Fraser Township as well. So that includes Auburn City, it includes Linwood, and Pinconning City.
In those areas then, as you've been out on the campaign trail, obviously you bring your perception of the issues that are of concern to you. What are the voters saying, and what then is that list of what people are saying are the prime concerns for this campaign of 2012?
Well, we've knocked almost 10,000 doors as we've been campaigning over the past 8 months or so. And people's concerns deal with the concerns for their children and their children's futures, concerns about jobs, the lack of jobs, concerns for what I call the social safety net. There's a lot of poor areas in Bay County. There's also poor areas in Midland City and the out townships areas in Midland County. And so people are concerned about having aid that they may need or that their family members may need that has been cut from the state budget. So that's a concern. Jobs are a big concern, of course, because jobs, we still need good jobs and good paying jobs in our area. And education is a big concern. I keep hearing that as well.
On those issues then, what are some of the things that are coming into formation for you as a candidate that, if elected, would be the first steps you would want to take to address those if elected, and then taking office in January to start addressing those concerns?
As a representative, I really feel that we need to address education in our state. We have an opportunity to address early childhood education, 3- and 4-year-olds. If we have that solid start for our children, that has a huge impact all the way up until they're an adult. If we get them started early and get them started with comprehension and those early little skills that they need. They do so much better in kindergarten and in early childhood education. On up into middle school, they have good study habits. That keeps right on going. They've proven this with studies. They do better with jobs. There's less juvenile delinquency. It all pays off just with those 2 years, 3 and 4 year olds. It's a huge payoff by expending not that much money for those 2 particular years. And then we also, of course, need to have really good education K to 12. That's important. And we need good college education. But we also need vocational education for the kids who want to be able to use other skills besides the college education skills that we all depend on as well. So we need middle school vocational education so kids can get a taste of that, which we have pretty much cut back, way back on over the years. And we need high school vocational education, which we do have and we need to expand. And we also, I feel very strongly, we need to have more retraining programs for people who are adults who've been out of work or simply who want to try other skills so that they can get better jobs. We need all of that so that we have a really good, well-trained workforce. So when jobs come into Michigan, or when we have jobs that are there that have no people in those jobs because there's not the training that's there.
Acknowledging the last decade or so of the downturn economy, the transforming Michigan economy, one of the areas that has seen wide fluctuations in the budget overall funding has been then education. The loss of jobs for one, but also then that educational base you talk about. How do we address then, what would be your plan to address the way that we would pay for and look at and specifically address those types of education concerns given the economic reality of where Michigan is today and entering this campaign and obviously 2013 and forward?
We need to first have the school fund stay the school fund. The school fund is a big pile of money. And when the general fund gets shortchanged and we are in need of finding money for this general fund, it's really tempting to dip into the school fund, and that can't happen. The school fund needs to be left for the schools. We can't take money out of the K-12 education program for the colleges. That also can't happen. The other thing that has to happen is that we need to find ways to add to our monies for the school fund. And one of the ways that could happen, perhaps, is for us to start taxing or collecting taxes for internet sales. We don't do that. And that could be millions and millions of dollars a year, I mean hundreds of millions of dollars a year. One of the numbers that I saw was $150 million a year that we aren't collecting in internet sales. And that's something that we could do. The other thing that we could do is take a look at how we do contracts in the state and see where we can scale back or tighten up those contracts and save money there. There's ways that we can save money without taxing more the middle class people of our state.
If we take another look at that education funding puzzle, as it were, there is the formula that is in place that's been the formula Proposal A, and as we mentioned, yes, obviously the transformed economy that we are now in, and there is also the overlay of the 1963 Constitution, and when you say leave the education fund as the education fund, there is very little wiggle room in terms of, yes, what we can do within that Constitution. But if we at least step back to look at education funding as an isolated piece, does Proposal A need to be reformed, scrapped completely? How would we do that to again, reflect more of the reality of where we are right now?
Well, Proposal A is a constitutional amendment, so that is going to have to be carefully looked at as to how we're going to do anything with it, if it's going to be changed at all. What I would like to see happen is to have educators, legislators, school administrators come together and take a look at how we can make this work. It's not going to happen by legislators dictating to school teachers and to administrators what little we have in terms of funding is going to be used in the schools. And I would like us to take a longer view than just 2 years or 5 years down the road. We need to see where can we be in 2025, or 2025. How can we have our education programs look in the state in 10 or 15 years? And how are we going to make that happen as a state, all together, working together, and not have it just be dictatorship from the state level down to the local level? How can we all work together to make that happen? I don't see that happening. I would love to have us all work together, talk together about it, plan together, and make that happen.
About 3 minutes that we have, and we've looked obviously primarily at the issue of the jobs and the education, which impacts all. But if we look at the shape of District 98 in terms of including some rural areas and also some more city areas, issues such as agriculture or the specific concerns that may on the surface seem separate, what are voters telling you in terms of how the issues, say, in a city might differ from those in the rural areas, and what are they suggesting to you as how best to blend those concerns overall in an economic development plan, addressing those issues once again?
That's a tough question. Let me think. Well, I've talked to people in the smaller towns. I've talked to a lot of people in Midland. We've talked to people in Pinconning and in Linwood. And really, a lot of the problems and the concerns are very similar in a way. People are concerned about their futures. People are concerned about their children. People are concerned about where their health care is going to be when they get older. People are concerned about how they're going to get along if their roads aren't going to be good. That's a problem in every township meeting that I went to, is, how are we going to keep our roads healthy because the funding is so bad. That the state gets, actually the federal funding gets cut, the state funding gets cut, and the townships have very little to work with. So it's how do we work with what little we have to make it work well. And everybody wants a good quality of life no matter where they live, whether it's in Mount Forest or whether it's in the city of Midland. They want to have a good quality of life for their family. They want to have a good quality of life, as a couple or as a single person. That's what they want, irregardless of where they are.
Then if we look at the issues and also the many different types of voters that you've had the chance to talk to in the last minute, then if you were to sum that up as the message you would want to leave for all of those voters, the folks that you are asking to vote for you, what would be that final message that you would have to all the voters in District 98 as to why they should vote for you?
I want to be a voice for the ordinary people of our part of the state. That's what I have tried to do by listening to the people that I've gone to visit over the past 9 months. I am a mother and a grandmother. I have worked with people and served people for the past 20 years in my ministry in church. That's what I want to take to Lansing, is that idea of serving and to listen, and then to, once I am in Lansing, to continue to serve and to listen as often as I can when I come back into Midland or to Pinconning or to whatever little town that I can, so that I'm hearing people's concerns and responding to them as faithfully as I possibly can.
Well, we appreciate your time, the chance to talk to the voters and address those concerns as they have been voicing them to you, and the issues and concerns that you take into this effort as a candidate for this office. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and best of luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your time and attention as well. As always here on Meet the Candidates, our guest this time has been Joan Brausch. She is the Democratic candidate in the 98th State House District. I'm David Nicholas. On behalf of all of us here, we urge you to get out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th. Remember that all these segments are also being posted to our website at WCMU.org.
Thank you for joining us for Meet the Candidates. CMU Public Broadcasting invited both major party candidates for this office to participate in this series.
Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and this time we welcome Representative Stacy Erwin Oaks. She is the Democratic representative for Michigan's 95th House District and is seeking re-election to a second term in that office. Representative, good to have you back, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
In our first few moments, we give the nod to the program title, Meet the Candidates, and give each of our guests a chance to either get acquainted with or to get reintroduced to the voters that you're talking to today. And so a little bit about your background, the experience that you bring to the office.
I am a proud product of the Saginaw Public School System. Actually, did a year at Central Michigan before transferring to Fair State University, where I graduated certified in law enforcement. Worked as a correction officer at Saginaw Correctional Facility for several years while working on my teacher certification that I received from Saginaw Valley. After receiving my teaching certification, I went on to teach at the Saginaw Public Schools and coach girls basketball. It was at that time that I then decided to go to law school. Went to Michigan State Law School, graduated from there, and my first position was with the House of Representatives as a policy analyst. I was then hired as Assistant Attorney General, where I worked for about 8 years before running for state representative in 2010. I am a developer, did a 46-unit housing development, and I tell people I am the wife of one, mother of two, and proud servant of the 95th District.
And the district itself has changed somewhat, as most of ours have, with the 2010 census and the redrawn lines. So from your first campaign to now this campaign, how has that district changed in terms of the alignment of counties, cities, townships, and so forth? Kind of draw that map for us once again.
It's changed dramatically. It's gone from being the city of Saginaw, Bridgeport Township, Buena Vista, Spalding, to now encompassing Carlton Township, the city of Zilwaukee Township, and James Township, as well as Kochville, which is where Saginaw Valley is located.
And the issues then that you see confronting for this particular campaign, the primary issues that you would identify for District 95?
Some of the primary issues are the same issues that affect the state right now as it relates to economic development and jobs. Those are some key issues in those areas as well.
And from the nature of, we ask this of incumbents running for re-election, if you point to the record that you're running on from your first term in office, what would you point to in terms of either as a sponsor, supporter of, or potentially opponent of the ballots the bills and legislation that have gone through? What would you say has been happening in your first term that directly addresses those issues?
I think I've been a strong voice for education as it relates to the school aid fund. We've seen that constantly raided by the Republicans to fill the budget gaps. I think that's not the purpose of the school aid fund, and we should not be using it for such. So I think I've been a strong voice for that. Also, as it relates to my experience with the judiciary, I sponsored a bill and it was passed where with the realignment of our courts and Saginaw County, to their credit, prosecutes and handles more of a caseload for its population, therefore that they did not lose any judgeship. So I found that to be very important as well.
Now, a bill like that, was that one that addressed specifically the issues and the situation in that district, or was the nature of that something that applies statewide in terms of the way business is done, for lack of a better term?
It applies statewide. About every 2 years, they look at each district and see, if there's a need for additional judgeship or if there's a need to reduce some judgeship. So it applied statewide.
When you talked about the economics and the job factors, especially now comparing, as you said, a dramatically different district, when we look at our cities versus our rural areas and how some of these issues sometimes can affect one or the other in very different ways, what would you be looking to if re-elected to a second term to address some of those economics now with a district that has different shape, different configuration than when you ran for the first time?
Well, I'm going to hope that there'll be a lot more collaboration in the area that I represent. There's been a sense of conversation towards regionalism. As it relates to the 95th district specifically, now it will include parts of Kochville, as I indicated, along with the city. So now you're talking about a very rural area along with the city area. But ultimately, it is the goal to make sure that we bring some additional jobs and it benefits everyone. The governor has a program, Community Ventures, where they're looking to invest some money for the hard to employ, whether that be those who have chronic unemployment, some with some convictions, or some with some additional talent base. It is my hope that those employers who will receive some of that funding to help employ those individuals will then keep them on, and so that they will not have to rely on the system so much.
As you see it in traveling around the portions of the district, is that something that you would see as a potential benefit, or is there something you would want to add for other proposals or programs that you would look at that, again, can best unify all the voters, be it more in the city setting or the rural setting? Is that program one that you see as one that can benefit all aspects of your district, or would you want to add on to what the governor's already proposed?
I think it is something that can benefit all areas if implemented correctly. It can't be something that's just a one hit and it goes away. It has to be something that's sustainable, something that can keep people employed, not something that's a 90-day trial period or 1 year, something where there can actually be some growth, whether it's in service industry jobs or technology. I think we have to do a better job at reaching out and retaining individuals in these employment situations. We can't just throw dollars after a temporary fix to have a great program. We have to have a program that actually works and keeps people employed. I think that's going to be a very necessary in doing that. As I've spoke about before, there's a bill that I've introduced, and a bill that would allow for expungement of an offense. In this state, if you have more than two offenses, more than one offense, if you have two offenses, you cannot get an expungement, whether that's one felony and one misdemeanor or two misdemeanors. That is a real problem, because at the end of the day, when employers are looking to employ people, of course they're going to look past the people with the misdemeanors, the people with the felonies. And in this state, we know about 1 in 5 people have a felony. A felony, unfortunately, based on legislation that we have passed and past legislators have passed, is not meaning what it used to mean. It used to be if someone had a felony, you thought they were had convicted of a crime that actually caused physical harm, or at the end of the day, we know failure to pay child support can cause some social injustices and can be quite detrimental as well. But at the same time, when we label people with these lifetime labels, we continue to pay for that as a society as well if that individual cannot become gainfully employed. So it is my hope that we'll do some things that will work in conjunction to kind of make people whole after they have paid their debt to society. That
then is a good point then to remind the voters of the status of that when we look past the election. There is the so-called lame duck session, excuse me, and then the new term that would be coming up. So that is a bill that has been passed, is still pending.
That bill is still pending. It's my hope that it will be taken up in lame duck, and hopefully it will be signed by the governor.
If not, would that be one that you would immediately reintroduce in a second term if reelected?
Absolutely. You know, I'm pro-law enforcement. I'm all about corrections, but we have to do more when it comes to rehabilitation, because these people are still part of society. And, you know, they say people have to pay their debt. They have to pay for their debt, their crimes against society. We need to look at who's actually paying. As individuals, taxpayers, we're actually paying. When we choose to stigmatize people with these labels that they have to live with for the rest of their life. Now, don't get me confused. I firmly believe some of those labels for some of those individuals should stick, and people should be very much aware. But as I've said before, we must lock up those who we are afraid of, and not those that we're just mad at. Those we're mad at, we need to see if we can rehabilitate them so they can function in this society.
You brought up also the issue of education, the school aid fund, and how that has been handled in recent years, and specifically in the first term that you served. If we look at that, and once again we refer to sort of the reconfiguration of the district, we've seen quite a bit of population shift. Several guests that have already come through for our series, even prior to your visit, have been talking. We brought up the issue of do we completely scrap Proposal A? Do we need to re-examine, adjust it, start over? As we look at the equity between city school districts, rural school districts, and the challenges that we see up and down the board in terms of paying for our schools, what specifically would you like to see done?
I would like to see that constitutional amendment where we actually make it clear that school aid fund money should be used for our education system. Unfortunately, whether it's a comprehensive tax plan that has to come into play, where we know where these dollars are to be used, and they're used in that capacity. Unfortunately, we take away sources of revenue with one-time fixes, where one legislature says, oh, we're going to set aside this money to make sure that that revenue is secure, but we, as you know, per the Constitution, one legislature cannot impose something on the next legislature. So unless we do some of these constitutional amendments, we will continue to have this type of problem. And raiding the school aid fund is not the answer. We know if we spend more time in educating our children, birth through 5 and on, we'll see less individuals in the correctional system. And I think ultimately that should be the goal.
When it comes to the question of the equity, what is the makeup that you've now seen in this reconfigured district in terms of schools that are seeing upper portions of versus lower ends? We see this up and down the state, especially the further north we get, in terms of schools not all receiving much above maybe that base funding level. What are you finding now as a situation with this redrawn 95th?
It basically represents that there has been a shift in population. Therefore, there's been a shift in some of the students who are attending schools that's now a part of this new district. Some of the inner city schools are suffering because of that, and you know, some of the funds won't be there. But we also know we have to educate everyone, and we know the teachers will be held accountable as well in that process, but at the same time we must make sure that the teachers have the proper resources that they need to deal with the situation that has come upon them no fault of their own.
Is there a way, would you look to try to fight for locking in, as you said, through the constitutional basis, that the school aid fund could not be, those monies could not be drawn out, something that would more adequately address that equity of funding across all of our districts statewide? Can we do both at the same time, potentially?
Yes. You know, one thing that people fail to realize, especially when it comes to charter schools, you have teachers who, some of which may be receiving a retirement benefit from our school system, who are not now paying into that system. So that produces a strain on the retirement system. But when you take and you look at one specific frame for 5 years as opposed to looking at amortized 10 years, then you have to pay in more to the system. There's ways where we can address some of the problems that's going on with the retirement system, with education, without putting it off on our seniors through a senior tax.
Well, for the issues of education, the economy, the law and order, and the courts that you brought up, the attention to all those issues today, we appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck with the rest of the campaign. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, as always, too, for tuning in for our series, Meet the Candidates. Our guest has been Representative Stacy Erwin, the Democratic representative for Michigan's 95th District. She is seeking re-election to a second term in that office. A reminder that all of these segments are being posted to our website at WCMU.org. And for all of us here, we, of course, as always, urge you to get out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th.
This has been Meet the Candidates, a production of CMU Public Broadcasting. Both major party candidates were invited to participate in this series. For a complete listing of the air dates and times for this series, or to watch or listen to this program again, go to our website, WCMU.org.
Support of WCMU is provided by Flint Institute of Arts, presenting Drawing Together International Cartoons. The exhibition features 300 cartoons from the Doan Foundation International Competition and runs through December 30th. FlintArts.org.